everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. I'm so excited to have you here today. Before we get started, be sure you're following me over on TikTok. I post lots of fun, silly videos over there. It's just a fun place to hang out. Plus, I post some tips, tricks, and hacks that you don't want to miss out on. In today's video, we are going to use our Explore and we are going to engrave a bookmark. Now I know it's kind of hard to see from that angle, but I'll show you a nice close-up of this before we get started. This is a really easy thing to do, but one thing I want you to be aware of is if you are going to use your Explore to engrave, you need to make sure that the machine is more than a year old. Using the Explore to engrave will actually void the warranty, and everyone always asks me, well, why is that when Cricut makes an engraving tool? The engraving tool that Cricut makes is only for your Cricut Maker machines. The engraving tool that we're going to use in our Explore is made by an off-brand, so it's not covered by Cricut. They can't guarantee that it works, and therefore it will void your warranty. Now, I've used it a ton. I've had no issues. I wouldn't share it with you if I thought that it was going to damage your machine, and I really love it. I'm going to also link below the bookmarks that I'm using. They came with a ton of colored tassels, and then you get a bunch of the bookmarks as well. So we're going to make this really cute one, and we'll talk about some really cute fonts too that will work great with engraving, and I'll link everything that we're using down below. So let's get started.
Whatever we would do, we do it just for fun.
Engraving with the Explore is super fun. So what we're going to do is make a bookmark, and I think this is a really fun way that you can use the Explore to engrave without doing it with something really, really thick. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to open up a shape and I'm going to use a square, but we are going to resize that because we're going to use it like a template. Now to open that up, perfect, done. What you need to do here though is to unlock the shape so that we can change the dimensions because our bookmark is a rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and right up here at the top where it's got the little lock button, go ahead and click on that lock. Now our bookmark is 2 inches wide, but it is about 5.5 inches tall. So that just makes it a little easier to kind of size everything. And then just because in case I accidentally grab something, I am going to click the lock and make it closed again. Because now you'll see that I can expand it and it'll keep the same dimensions, but it will make it bigger. So if I go back and change this back down to 2, it will stay at 5.5. Now that's a little dark. I don't love looking at that. So I usually will like put a lighter color behind that just to make it easier to see. Now we're going to choose a font because we're going to engrave. We're going to use some really fun fonts. So first thing I'm going to do is enter my text and I'm just going to put my name on this and I'm going to slide that over to the side. In Design Space, Cricut used to like close the font selection tool, the box, when you were picking out a font, but now it keeps it open, which makes it so much easier to use. So you can go through and I'm going to go into my system fonts and you can kind of click on the different fonts just to see what they look like. Now I want to use a font that's going to engrave really cool. So I know for a fact I have some like sketch fonts that will work fantastic for engraving. So what I'm going to do is I can either just keep scrolling through this, which could take forever, or I'm going to show you one of my favorite websites that works great for selecting fonts. Wordmark.it is a free website where you can just enter the word that you want to put on your product or your phrase. Then if you click the arrow, it's going to bring up all of the fonts that you have. So you can see that you can scroll through and choose some fonts that you want to try out. So this is iSketchy Times. That one engraves pretty cool looking, but I'm going to scroll through and just see if there are any other fonts that I think I might want to look into using for this design. Now, like I said, there are some fonts that will work better than others. Because we're using this with engraving, it's very much like using it with writing, where if it's not super thin and you're not using a Cricut writing font, it will engrave as a bubble letter, so to speak. So there are some fonts that you can use that will either give you the look of it having written, or that you can kind of fake making it look written. So I'm going to go ahead and click through some of these, select them, and then show you what they look like over in Design Space. Now that I've gone through all the fonts and chosen ones that I think that I like, I can hit the Filter Selected Fonts button up here at the top. So you'll notice that a lot of the fonts are either very thin, like Daisy Ray and Rosewater, or they're kind of made with like some sketched lines on them, like Sketch 3D, Sketchy, Typo Sketch Demo, and Witness. So from here, we can kind of know what fonts we think might look good and kind of weed out the ones that maybe we don't want. So like, I don't love that one, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. There's also this one that I'm not a big fan of, the Milano Traffic. I just don't like the look for what I'm doing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one as well. I also don't like Typo Sketch Demo. I normally like that one, but not for my bookmark. So you can kind of weed it down to a few that maybe you want to take a look at in Design Space and see what they'll look like when you choose Engrave. So the one that I am most attracted to at the moment is Sketch 3D. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Back over in Design Space, since you know the name of your font, you can just type in a couple of the letters and it will bring up all of the ones that match that kind of information. So right here I have Sketch 3D, so I can click on that and you'll see that it'll change my name over here in the corner. Now for this one, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what it looks like when we change it over to an engraving. Now I have the maker selected right now because it's going to give me the option to change to engraving just so I can get a better look. You could have the Explorer selected if you would choose to. It's up to you, but we are going to be doing this on the Explorer. So under operation, I'm just going to choose engrave and just see how that looks. Now it does give me some kind of a bubble letter look, but I think it looks pretty cool. But we can again kind of change that out for maybe one of the other ones that we had chosen. So like we have Sketch Nice, which we could take a look at, and it'll just give you an idea of what it's going to look like. So let's see what other fonts we had selected because I didn't really love that one. So now that I've decided I don't really love Sketch 3D, I can just get rid of it and take a look at some of my other options. Kid Stories is pretty cute, and I do like H&B Sketch Demo, so let's take a look at those two. So we should be able to find a Sketch Demo pretty easy because it should be under, there it is, under all of this. So we can take a look at how that looks and choose that. That one looks pretty cool. But I did want to try that Kid Stories one because I liked that one. I thought it was pretty cute as well. I think I like the Sketch Demo better. So let's go ahead and pick a font. I think I'm going to go with this Sippin' on Sunshine. I think it's really cute. I will link all the fonts that I've kind of showed you and my favorite like sketchy type fonts below. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take this and place it on to my rectangle so I can get it all sized. Now a really easy way to do that is you can take your name and up here at the top, just choose to rotate it 90 degrees. That's going to turn it sideways. Now if I don't love like that direction, it just depends on which way you want it to go. We can change it, but I think going downwards will be fine. So I'm going to slide it over on to my blank here. Now keep in mind that there is a small hole on this for the tassel for your bookmark. So I am going to size this down a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of place it and see what I think. I think that looks pretty good, but let's go ahead and make sure to change this name here to the engrave just to make sure it looks right. It does. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now what I want to do before I do anything else is I'm going to come up here to the top and change Maker over to the Cricut Explore family because I'm using my Explore Air 2 for this. Now it's going to give you this red little exclamation point over here because we have it selected as a engraving. So what I want to do is over in operation, I'm going to change this over just to basic cut, and it is going to look like it gets really fat and chubby, but it doesn't. Don't worry. It's just showing you like the cut line that it's going to follow, but it's following the same path that it would follow if it was to engrave. Now the first thing I want to do is make sure to save this before I do anything else. That way it doesn't accidentally get messed up and I can find it easy in case it does. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. Once everything is saved, we're going to hit make it, and I'm going to show you how to line this up because it's really easy to make sure that it's lined up really well by using the blue rectangle as kind of a guide. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this word right here. I want to right click on the three dots and click move object, and I want to move the object to the blue mat. So I'm going to select that mat and click confirm. I want to take my blue rectangle and I want to line it up onto a grid line that makes sense for me. So for me, I like to use the 3 and the 3. I find that it gives me space for the painter's tape to help hold the image down or the blank down. But then I also find that that's pretty easy when I go to actually line it up on the mat to line it up onto the 3 and the 3. The next thing I'm going to do is line my name up onto the blue rectangle. I'm going to move it up just a smidge. And this is where you're going to have to kind of use your own eyes to center this best you can. But I think that looks pretty centered. Now we need to get rid of the blue square or rectangle here because if we leave it there, it's going to try to cut it out. And if it does that, it's going to leave a line on your bookmark. And we don't want it to do that. So what I'm going to do is right click on those 3 dots and click hide selected. That's going to just kind of make it disappear and Cricut Design Space won't do anything with it. But now it will go ahead and engrave on your bookmark where we have this sitting. So if you click on that, you'll see it brings the grids back up and you can see where I would have it lined up on the grid. Now that we have that all set, good to go, we can hit make it and we can hit continue. Now with this, I do tend to use the heavy cardstock setting. That seems to work really well for the thinner acrylic or the thinner plastic that we are using for this design. For this project, I do recommend using a strong grip mat, and then we're going to use these little bookmark blanks. Now these have a protective coating on both sides, so you want to peel that off, and I typically will only peel it off the side that I'm going to engrave on. And then what I want to do is I'm going to turn my mat so I can see what I'm doing a little better. And I'm going to place this on that 3 and 3 grid line. And I want to make sure that I get it lined up nice and straight, both at the top and at the bottom. And then I want to press this down. The next thing I'm going to do is grab some painter's tape, and this is just going to give us a little extra hold on our blank. This is just that little extra edge of protection to keep it from shifting around while we're engraving. So I'm going to go ahead and just place this down. I'm going to put it on all of the sides for this one because I'm not going right to the edge with this design. So I'm just going to put this just very lightly over the edge. I don't want to put a ton of painter's tape over the blank, just a little bit. Now you don't really have to do every side of this. It does seem to hold pretty well with just the top and the bottom. But because this is a long engraving, this one's going to take quite some time, I am going to hold this down pretty well. Now we do need to change out our tool, and like I told you, we're using a non-Cricut brand tool. This is from Amazon. I will link this below. This is one I've used a ton. It works great, but again, keep in mind that if your Explore is less than a year old, this will technically void your warranty because this tool is not made by Cricut. So let's go ahead and open up our Explore, and we're going to insert our tool. So this is going to replace your fine point blade. So in clamp B, you're going to go ahead and open that and remove your fine point blade. Then you're going to insert your engraving tool, which just drops right in, just like the fine point blade. Close up your engraving tool holder there. So you're going to close that clamp B. Then you want to make sure that the white wheels on your machine are to the sides. That way they're not going to touch your engraving because they can leave marks on it. I'm going to go ahead and load my mat. And then I'm going to hit the little Cricut button, and that's going to tell it to go. Now, I'll note to you that I always leave my dial on custom with my Explore. I never move it. And we are going to be using the heavy cardstock setting. So let's go ahead and get this going. I'll let you know how long this takes, but I am going to speed it up. It is now finished, so we can go ahead and unload. I'm gonna go ahead and close the machine up really quick because I'm gonna move the camera so that you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So the first thing that I want you to note is that there is quite a bit of dust on this. Also, before I forget, I want to tell you, it took about 40 minutes, so not terribly long, but there's quite a bit of acrylic dust on this, so in order to combat that, what I want you to do is take your painter's tape that you used to hold your bookmark down, and I want you to just take it and kind of press it over the acrylic just to get a lot of that dust off. This works really well, and I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but there's quite a bit of dust. So I will do that with each piece of tape that I remove, because I'm going to be able to save some material by doing it this way rather than trying to, you know, remove it later. But this way I can just use tape that I'm going to throw away anyways. And usually by that second piece of tape, you really aren't getting a whole lot of dust off, so you're pretty good by then. Go ahead and take off the rest of the tape. And I'm going to go ahead, oops, that one didn't come off as well. That's okay. We'll just peel that off. No big deal. Luckily, painter's tape's great, doesn't damage your mat. You can go ahead and pop off your bookmark. You want to do this pretty carefully because it is very stuck down. I'm going to move my mat over to the side. Now, I'm going to get you guys up closer so you can see this better, but what I want to make sure I do is remove the other piece of the backing from the other side of my bookmark, which not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes if I can't get it with my fingernail, which I can't seem to get this one, you can use a pin pen or your weeding tool, which is a great little option to help you get the plastic off of the backing. Okay, now that I've got that off, we can add our little tassel. These are just the tassels that came with it, so all I'm going to do is thread my tassel end through, so the little loop. I'm just going to thread it through the hole, pull that through, and then just thread the tassel through the hole there. And now our tassel's on. So I'm going to get you a closer up look of this. I wanted to get you a nice up close view of this as well so that you could really see the font. And I think it came out so adorable. Like I said, this did take a while to engrave. It took about 40 minutes, but I really love it. I think it's really fun. And it was a really easy way that you can make your own little fun bookmark. And this is just like a thin plastic. It's not like a true acrylic, but it is a nice thin plastic. And it works great for this. You can see how nicely that came out. You can see the reflection of my ring light, which is kind of causing some issues getting it to focus. But there we go. Look at that. It looks so good. I love it. I think it came out really fun. It looks amazing. I'll show you guys the bookmark in front of some colored vinyl so you can see it really well. Here's a really nice shot with it in front of some colors just so you can see it pretty nicely. I really think this is fun. It's a really fun way to make some custom designs. Now again, you can use all sorts of things, whatever you really want to do. This was just a really fun sketch font, which I will link below for you. That way you can use it as well. But there are so many fun options that you can play around with and make your own really fun designs. You, of course, don't have to put a name. There are foil designs that you can use, and I will link a video that talks about foil designs for you as well that you can use with your engraving. I hope you guys had fun checking out how to engrave with your Explore. Again, I'll link everything, including the tool that we used, down below. And don't forget that while this does technically void your warranty, I've been doing it for a long time and haven't had any issues. I've really enjoyed working with that tool. It works really well, fits the machine perfectly. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in those comments down below. I am always happy to answer those for you. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting!